Antiques Roadshow presenter for 24 years, Lark E. Mason thought he had seen it all, but during one episode he was confronted with a statue that left him stunned and shocked, especially when the women told him how she had acquired such a unique item. While he had seen people bring precious items from all over the world and loved trying to decipher the history and value of the item, Mason never expected such a rare item ever being brought in front of him. It should have been just another episode of Antiques Roadshow for Lark E. Mason, but it turned into a story that he would recall time to time again. It was early 2002. As the owner walked towards him, Mason's eyes only saw the lion statue that was being brought to him. He had spent a lifetime learning and teaching about antiques, especially from China, so if anyone could find more about the unassuming statue, it was Mason. And just by simply looking at it, he knew that the owner had no idea how valuable of an item she was holding in her hands. The first question Mason asked was, how did she get it? But the answer wasn't as simple as the question. It seemed that the statue has been in the owner's family for a long time, and her early memories of how it came to be in her family are pretty murky. My grandparents picked it up. They traveled a lot in China, she said. When were they in China? Mason asked. The lady replied by saying, probably in the early part of the century. Where have you had this since then? Mason asked. My mother's had it in her house, and since then, I inherited it and brought it west, she said. Since then, the statue has stayed in the corner of her living room. She even gave it a name, Leo the Lion. To the owner, the statue wasn't just a piece of history, but an item that was a part of her family, something which bound 3 generations of her family together. While it had a great sentimental value, no one in her family knew the real monetary value of the piece. For someone as experienced as Mason was in the world of antiques, it was amazing to see him become so genuinely emotional on air, especially since at the point he had seen hundreds of antiques. Okay, well, I'll start by saying when this came up, I could barely, he said. He was lost for words and was slightly trembling. His deep love for history and antiques were making it hard for him to stay professional. But he had to pull himself together because the owner deserved to know more about Leo the Lion. He inspected it further and said, it's fantastic. This is truly, sorry, I'm a little worked up, he said. This is among the finest examples of Chinese art that we have seen on the Roadshow. The carving is beautiful. The workmanship is stunning. Mason continued, the carver who did this was truly a master, he said. You can see the muscles rippling under the surface. It's the finest quality marble you can get. It's truly magnificent. To the layman's eyes, the loin statue looks like any other, but Mason tried to explain why he was so overwhelmed by this piece of history by showcasing the small details around the side of the statue. And as you look at this, any way you look at it, it's fantastic, breathtaking, Mason said. Every detail in the craftsmanship had been saved, making it a pristine specimen that was meant for museums, not living rooms. But still, this detail still does not seem enough to drive the antique expert to tears. It was also because of its rarity. I see little tiny versions of these that come in for sale, but never does one see one like this, he said.